What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name is Kyle. You can follow me on Twitter at @thefellowkgb. I also just created a new Instagram, so if you guys go to thefantasyfellowship.com, I'll probably put a link in the description below too. But we got the Instagram logo up here on the website. I'm going to be trying to post there every day. We'll see what we can get on there. But the new Fellow KGB Fantasy Fellowship Instagram account, we'll start pumping some things out on there to keep things fresh for you guys every day. But for this video, we're looking at the 2020 target share for running backs. This is an exclusive article for the premium content. If you guys want to check out the 2021 draft kit, please do so. You guys can purchase it right on thefantasyfellowship.com. There's also a link in the description below. But if you are a subscriber to the draft kit, you just scroll down here and keep looking for our 2020 target share. And I got the running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. Today, this video, we're going to go over the running backs and try and see what we can learn from target share. Because as we've seen, we've studied yard share, we've studied opportunity share. We both know how vital those numbers are to predicting whether a running back finishes, or any position really. It really correlates to how they finish in PPR. So this video, just strictly target share, and target share is the percentage amount of targets a player received within his offense. So the leading target share person last year was Alvin Kamara for the running backs here. So you can see the rank in yard share, ranked 1 through 12 here. There's the percentage of yard share going down on this column. And then on the far right column, you can see the PPR finishes. And what's interesting is I thought targets and receptions and things would kind of correlate a little bit stronger to where a running back finished in PPR, but I actually think the yard share and the opportunity share painted a better picture and has more predictability and success when drafting our running back. So we see Alvin Kamara, of course, 20.50% target share. He finished as the PPR running back number 1. And then it starts to get a little weird. J.D. McKissic was number 2 in target share at 18.33%. He finished it as PPR number 16. 110 targets last year for J.D. McKissic, 80 catches, 589 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I think that's most of J.D. McKissic's numbers are a result of Alex Smith kind of dinking and dunking and just dumping the ball off really quickly. His numbers should come down. I don't think I have a big target for J.D. McKissic this year. Number 3, James White coming in. He finished as PPR 42, which is a really interesting. Just again, like we figured more targets means more PPR finishes, but within that offense last year for New England, they just didn't have a lot of targets to go around. So what sticks out is the targets, 107, 110 for J.D. McKissic and Kamara. Those are the only 2 guys over 100 targets, by the way. But James White at 62, and he comes in at 14.09% target share, PPR number 42. So I think he's got a floor, somewhere in that RB 40 range for this year. We'll look at my projections at the end of the video if you hang tight. But Rex Burkhead's out of the picture now. Potential for Mac Jones to maybe get some starting games here. So that passing pie could grow a little bit for James White. But again, for him to finish number 3 in target share, it doesn't really correlate to where he finished in PPR. You got Nyheim Hines here, RB 17, Mike Davis, RB 12. So not a very strong correlation to where you finished in PPR. The good news is 7 of the top 12 running backs in this target share number, 7 of the top 12 running backs finished as running back 1s, meaning they finished as top 12 running backs. That would be Alvin Kamara. You got Mike Davis, Aaron Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, David Montgomery, Dalvin Cook, and Kareem Hunt. So it's kind of like a 50% thing where the majority of these guys are going to finish as running back 1s. But with the target share, I think, if anything, it predicts a pretty good RB2 floor at least. You want running backs that are going to have some boosted value with the passing game. And technically the lowest finish of this study was RB 42 with James White. But for the most part, J.D. McKissic, a lot of targets. If you're projecting someone with a lot of target share, they could be a top 20 back. In his case, he was 16. Nyheim Hines is another one of those satellite backs, RB 17. Chase Edmonds, 23, Austin Eckler, 25. So for me, the biggest takeaway with this target share study is, of course, like your stud running backs, like the top 15, top 20 running backs that we take off the board. Those guys that are projected a high target share and are going to get a good amount of carries, that kind of cements them, as an RB2 floor with the upside of a running back 1, depending on how their rushing stats go. But guys like McKissic, James White, Nyheim Hines, Chase Edmonds, Austin Eckler, these guys that are kind of viewed as pass catching backs, it's painting a good picture that they can be trusted as RB2 floors. So I think that's an interesting stat here. Let me read some of the other things that I typed up this morning. So again, 7 of the top 12 running backs in target share finished as top 12 running backs in 2020. All of the running backs above had 51 targets and at least 300 receiving yards. So you see Kareem Hunt was the low end here at 51 targets. And the lowest amount of receiving yards was Kareem Hunt with 304. So if you're looking for, kind of in the middle rounds, you're trying to get a guy that could, potentially be an RB3 for you or someone that you can use as your flex, that's kind of a good, thing in your head to know, hey, if he's going to get 50 some targets and about 300 yards receiving, he might be flex worthy. Injuries happen. He could be forced into more work. So that's interesting to note. The other thing here is all of the running backs above finished with a target share greater than 10%. Only one other running back below was able to hit this 10%. That was Giovanni Bernard. He was RB30. And the worst finishes among these 13 running backs was RB42, James White, and then Bernard at 30. So all of these running backs here, you see Giovanni Bernard here at 13, over 10% share. The majority of these guys, were RB2s. James White, RB42, or James White, RB42, and Giovanni Bernard were RB30, but they both had pretty successful, moments last year. So maybe that's kind of more of a best ball thing. But the majority of these guys up here did finish in the top 24, top 25 of running backs. So I have the note here that says draft running backs with a 10% plus target share. And then only 8 running backs caught more than 50 receptions. The worst finish in PPR among these running backs was Austin Ekeler at RB25. And the thing with Austin Ekeler is we know he missed games last year. So here's the list. You got Kamara with 83, McKissick with 80. I kind of cut James White off the list because he was kind of an outlier. Nyheim Hines had 63, Mike Davis 59, Chase Edmonds 53, 52 for Elliott, 54 for Montgomery, 54 for Austin Ekeler, and then no other running backs on this list had more than 50 catches. So if you're looking for, again, another kind of threshold here, that 51 targets. Otherwise, if you can find a running back that you're projected for 50 receptions, that to me is going to lock in a really valuable running back. And the thing that's common with these running backs that we just talked about, the lowest finish was technically Austin Ekeler, but we know on a points per game basis, he was an RB1 last year. So over 50 receptions, technically you're getting a running back one and RB2, a high RB2 floor. So I like looking at that metric in terms of target share, but with the receptions and the targets kind of sprinkled in there. So let's go on to the second table here. And now we're looking at a target share from 10.15% all the way down to almost 8%. And then you look at the PPR finishes here. Now we're looking at a lot of running back twos. You see RB30, 18, 7, 24, 22, all the way down the list. So these guys are more running back two flexes. There are a couple outliers, guys like Josh Jacobs, who we know doesn't catch the ball very much. But the fact that he got an 8%, target share is pretty good, interesting news. They did add Kenyon Drake, but we should expect Josh Jacobs to be the leader in carries on that team. And as long as he's involved a little bit in that passing game, he should be a pretty high RB2. And then James Robinson, we'll see what happens with the Jacksonville Travis Etienne backfield. But some interesting notes here. Let me just kind of read this off now. So 15 of the top 24 running backs in target share finished as top 24 running backs. The outliers, you got Jerick McKinnon down here at 38. He didn't get any carries really. Devin Singletary was RB31. Myles Gaskin, RB28. Giovanni Bernard, RB30. And then just a handful of guys up here that we already talked about. So the majority of these guys are going to finish as top 24 running backs. Our target share range above is roughly 8 to 10%. The highest PPR finishes are RB7 and 8, while the lowest finishes are 30 and 38. If we take out the two lowest finishes from the top 24, which is James White and Jerick McKinnon, we are looking at 22 of the top 24 running backs in target share, all finishing within the top 31 of PPR running backs. So again, the higher the target share, the more likely that we get more guys to finish inside the top 30 or so for running back. So again, that's kind of more projecting high upside RB2 flex plays in PPR leagues. So the note here is target running backs with an 8 to 10 target share. Another note here says all of the running backs above had more than 44 targets. Miles Sanders had the fewest receptions with 28, and Melvin Gordon had the least amount of yards with 158. So with that said, 28 total running backs caught more than 30 catches last year. James White was the worst one at RB42. So the safe, statistic is target running backs with at least 30 receptions. That should be an RB2 floor. So we have that 30 reception threshold. And then from the beginning of the video, We talked about 50 plus receptions. That's like an elite PPR running back one. And then 30 receptions is a guy that could be a top 30, top 36 running back as a floor. So with the targets, it's not really identifying those elite stud running backs as the yard share and the opportunity share had been. But the target share with running backs, it's kind of identifying those middling RB2s, those guys with some upside in the back end of the draft. I'm talking, a guy like, we'll kind of throw in even Giovanni Bernard technically with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But more so, I'm looking at guys like Nyheim Hines, James White, Chase Edmonds, these guys that have a pass catching role already locked up with their teams. They do have an RB2 floor. So that's just some interesting notes that I found there. And then you can kind of see the running backs ranked 25 through 50. And then to recap, I'm going to target running backs with a 10+% target share. I want to draft running backs, like elite running backs with 50 plus receptions. We're going to target running backs with an 8 to 10 target share. These guys kind of have an RB2 floor. And then target running backs with 30 plus receptions. Again, that's likely these last two columns here, the 8 to 10 target share and the 30 receptions. That's going to give us roughly a top 30, top 36 running back at worst. So if you want to check out the 2021 draft kit, you guys can dissect that yourself. It's only $15 one-time payment. Go ahead and check that out. And then what I'm doing here at the end of these videos, we're going to cover the wide receivers tomorrow and the tight ends the next day. But the target share for receivers and tight ends is much more, much stronger correlation to where they finish in PPR. So I love the running back stats, but it's more so finding high running back to top 30 flex running backs. But for receivers and tight ends, it's a really interesting stat. So what we're going to do here is we're going to filter by my target shares, and we'll see who the top, I basically will go over the rules again too. We said, we'll scroll down here, draft running backs with a 10+% target share. So I currently have 14 running backs with a 10% target share. That's Christian McCaffrey at the top, Kamara, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler. There's James White again, Aaron Jones, Nyheim Hines, Chase Edmonds, Ezekiel Elliott, J.D. McKissic, which I might end up lowering McKissic just a little bit. He's not a guy I'm super excited about because I'm more excited about Antonio Gibson. You got DeAndre Swift, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders. I feel pretty safe. All the running backs that I just listed, they're going to be top 30 running backs at worst, whether that's, I think James White could be very sneaky, especially if it's Mac Jones. Again, he's got no Rex Burkhead to deal with this year to steal targets or receptions. He might even get more carries this season too. But James White kind of sticks out there. Nyheim Hines sticks out. Chase Edmonds, J.D. McKissic, we'll see. But for the most part of this target share study, that's going to move those guys up in my head a little bit when it gets to the middle rounds of the draft. So we're drafting running backs over 10% target share. And then the other threshold was 10 or 8 to 10%. I think these guys all have a high floor week to week. And these guys I'm considering drafting them in PPR leagues. That's Miles Sanders, ETN, David Johnson, Antonio Gibson, Clyde Edwards, Kareem Hunt, Myles Gaskin, J.K. Dobbins, Chris Carson, Najee Harris, Mike Davis, and Michael Carter. The rest of the guys are really close. There's a handful here at 7% that I think could make the list, but we'll kind of stick to those rules for now. So we just covered the 10% target share, the 8 to 10. Now let's look at 50 receptions and 30 receptions. So we're going to filter now by receptions. And I have, it looks like 11 running backs over 50 receptions. Now these guys are all guys that probably need to be drafted. That's McCaffrey, Eckler, Kamara, Barkley, Nyheim Hines, Chase Edmonds, McKissic, Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, DeAndre Swift, James White. So the guys that I'm still not sure about, Nyheim Hines, what's his value with Phillip Rivers gone now? Is Carson Wentz going to check down a lot to Nyheim Hines? I did scale Hines' numbers back just a little bit, so I don't have him as high as he finished last season, but he could flirt with a top 25, top 30 running back season, and he's pretty cheap in drafts. Chase Edmonds seems to have a nice floor built in. I have him at 59 catches. J.D. McKissic, again, that's the one that I think I have to wait on a little bit. I'm not going to endorse drafting J.D. McKissic, but he should be really cheap late in drafts as a PPR back. If anything happens to Antonio Gibson, McKissic's going to have a really nice season. And Gibson's already got the toe injury that's kind of lingering from last year, but I like Gibson's game. We'll see if McKissic takes a little bit of a back seat there. But Elliott, DeAndre Swift, James White, these guys are all going to be very useful in PPR. And then guys that just missed the cut, Joe Mixon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Travis Etienne, Dalvin Cook, all in the high 40s. There's Gibson, Gaskin, all these guys in the 40s. So I like all those running backs as well. And then we did say the threshold of over 30 receptions. Here's the list of these running backs. I'm not going to name them all off if you guys just want to take a look at the list. But some of the names that stick out: Michael Carter down here. I have him at the 26th most projected receptions. David Johnson's still going to catch passes in Houston, and they're going to throw the ball in Houston. They have no choice. But there's Tariq Cohen. I think he's going to kind of take some steam off of David Montgomery's stats. Jonathan Taylor, again, I have him a little bit lower because Phillip Rivers, less passing to the running backs. Devin Singletary still pretty high. I think he's going to be the leading receiver running back for Buffalo. Tony Pollard, Tariq Cohen, Kenyon Drake, James Robinson. A lot of interesting names at the end of this list. And then some guys that just missed the cut that I'm interested in. J.K. Dobbins. We'll see about Henderson, Josh Jacobs, Jamal Williams, Leonard Fournette, Malcolm Brown, Melvin Gordon, Nick Chubb, and then there's Derrick Henry. So I'm not sure if that was a help at all. I just wanted to cover the target share. Again, don't miss the video on I think tomorrow I'll go over the wide receivers. I also uploaded some really cool videos the last week or so looking at our yard share study. And then I also on Friday, if you have the time to check this one out with Sigmund Bloom here, we talked about 2021 projections. We touched on so many different names and players and situations that we need to be ahead of for this season. So Sigmund Bloom, footballguys.com, really great person. Had a lot of fun talking with him, so check that one out. That might be one of the most important videos that I do this summer. And then again, just on the YouTube channel here, I just want to show you guys, if you haven't checked out a lot of the yard share studies, we have all of those videos up here as well. Tight end yard share, wide receiver, running back. Check out the opportunity share videos. Those are some of the most important videos I put out. So that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for your time. Check out the Instagram account. If you guys are on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, all that good stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.